The swirling violet nebula outside Commander Sarah Chen's viewport would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Instead, it served as a backdrop for the most devastating sight humanity had ever witnessed. The approaching Nexar battle fleet, their obsidian ships reflecting starlight like polished black diamonds. Status report, Chen commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of 12 billion lives resting on her shoulders. The bridge of the ESS Endeavour hummed with nervous energy as her crew worked their stations. 97 ships, Commander, Lieutenant Rivera reported from Tactical. Their energy signatures are, well, they're off the charts. Each vessel appears to be powered by what looks like artificial quantum singularities. Chen nodded, unsurprised. The Nexar Empire had made their technological superiority clear from the moment they arrived at the edge of the solar system 3 days ago. Their first transmission had been simple: surrender Earth or face extinction. They didn't even bother with diplomacy. And our special package? Chen asked quietly. Dr. Emily Potol looked up from her station, her dark eyes glinting with determination. The consciousness matrix is stable, Commander. Though I still say this is closer to philosophy than physics. At this point, Doctor, I'll take either. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Nexar wouldn't be expecting what they had planned. Nobody would. The main screen flickered to life with another transmission from the Nexar fleet. Supreme Commander Vexthor's face filled the display, his crystalline features arranged in what passed for amusement among his species. Your time has expired, humans, he announced, each word dripping with condescension. Our scans show your vessel still operates on primitive quantum mechanics. You haven't even mastered basic consciousness transfer. Truly, you are children playing with toys you don't understand. Chen exchanged a knowing look with Dr. Patel. The Nexar's arrogance was their weakness. They assumed their understanding of the universe was complete. They had never considered that a primitive species might approach problems from an entirely different angle. Supreme Commander, Chen replied, keeping her voice deliberately submissive. Before you destroy us, might I ask why? We pose no threat to your empire. Vexthor's crystalline features shifted in what might have been a smile. Because, my dear primitive, evolution demands it. The strong survive, the weak perish. Your species still thinks in linear terms, still believes in physical laws as absolute. You haven't even begun to grasp the true nature of reality. Perhaps, Chen agreed. Though I wonder, have you ever considered that your understanding might be incomplete? The Nexar commander laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Incomplete. We have mastered the manipulation of quantum states. We can bend space-time to our will. What could you possibly teach us about the nature of reality? Chen nodded to Dr. Patel, who began the activation sequence. That sometimes, Chen replied, the observer affects more than just the observed. The consciousness matrix hummed to life, its operations invisible to conventional sensors. While the Nexar had mastered quantum mechanics, humanity had taken a different path. Instead of trying to control quantum effects, Earth's scientists had studied consciousness itself, the role of the observer in quantum mechanics, the nature of perception, and its effect on reality. Your readings show no weapons charging, Vexthor noted, his tone growing bored. Are you hoping to appeal to our mercy? I should inform you we have none. No appeals, Chen replied. Just a question. If consciousness affects quantum states, and quantum states affect reality, what happens when consciousness itself becomes quantum? The consciousness matrix reached full power. Around the Endeavour, reality began to shift. Not in any way sensors could detect, but in the space between possibility and certainty. The Nexar ships suddenly found their quantum singularity drives operating at reduced efficiency, not through any physical effect, but because human consciousness was now observing them in a quantum state that made such efficiency impossible. Vexthor's features shifted from amusement to confusion as his ship's readings began to fluctuate. What are you doing? Showing you a different path, Chen answered. You mastered quantum mechanics. We mastered quantum consciousness. You tried to control reality. We learned to perceive it differently. The effect spread through the Nexer fleet as the consciousness matrix expanded its influence. Their mighty ships, powered by artificial singularities, found themselves subject to a new kind of observation, one that made their very operation uncertain on a quantum level. Impossible. Vexthor raged as his fleet's power levels continued to drop. You cannot affect quantum states through mere observation. The energy requirements alone would be impossible. Dr. Patil agreed, speaking up for the first time. If we were trying to force the changes, but we're not forcing anything. We're just perceiving things differently. And in quantum mechanics, perception is reality. Chen watched as the mighty Nexer fleet began to drift, their quantum drives unable to maintain stability under the influence of humanity's quantum consciousness. You thought we were primitive because we hadn't mastered your technology, she said quietly. You never considered we might have found a different path entirely. The Nexer commander's face showed the first traces of fear as he realized the truth. His empire had conquered 1,000 worlds through technological superiority, but they had never encountered a species that had transcended the need for such brute force approaches. You have a choice, Supreme Commander, Chen offered. Retreat and tell your empire that Earth is not to be trifled with, or stay and learn exactly how primitive we aren't. The silence that followed stretched for what felt like eternity. Finally, Vexthor spoke, his voice carrying a new tone. Respect. Perhaps we have something to learn from you after all. As the Nexer fleet began their withdrawal, Chen allowed herself to relax slightly. Humanity's first contact had nearly been their last. Instead, it had become something else entirely. Proof that sometimes the greatest advancement comes not from building bigger weapons, but from finding entirely new ways to view the universe itself. Dr. Patil approached her commander, smiling. They'll be back, you know. Not to conquer this time, but to understand. Chen nodded. Good, because I think we have a lot to learn from each other. She turned to face her crew. Send word to Earth. First contact's price wasn't our destruction. It was the shattering of everyone's preconceptions, including our own. Outside the viewport, the Violet Nebula continued its eternal dance, now bearing witness to a new chapter in galactic history. Humanity had proved itself not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but by showing that true advancement sometimes means finding a completely different path forward. 20 years before humanity's encounter with the Nexer Empire, Dr. Emily Patil stood before a panel of skeptical military officials in a hidden facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The holographic display behind her showed what appeared to be standard brainwave patterns, but there was nothing standard about what they represented. Gentlemen, she began, her voice echoing in the cavernous chamber, what you're looking at isn't just neural activity. It's the first recorded instance of quantum-entangled consciousness. General Marcus Hayes leaned forward, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the display. Doctor, we've reviewed your proposal. Project Mirror sounds more like science fiction than military research. You're suggesting consciousness itself can be quantized. Patil smiled, used to the skepticism. Not exactly, General. We're not changing consciousness. We're revealing its true nature. The Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics has always hinted at the role of consciousness in collapsing quantum states. We've simply reversed the equation. She gestured, and the display shifted to show a series of complex mathematical formulae. Traditional quantum physics focuses on particles and waves. But what if consciousness itself operates on quantum principles? What if our perception of reality isn't just observing quantum states, but participating in them? Dr. James Chen, Sarah Chen's father and the project's theoretical physicist, stepped forward. The implications go beyond military applications. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how we understand reality itself. The room erupted in murmurs as military officials exchanged glances. Colonel Diana Rodriguez, head of special projects, raised her hand. And you believe this could be weaponized? Weaponized. Patel shook her head. Colonel, we're talking about transcending the very concept of weapons. Imagine being able to perceive reality in quantum superposition, to not just observe quantum states, but to exist in them. The holographic display changed again, showing footage from their first successful test. A simple quantum particle accelerator, observed by a subject connected to their prototype consciousness matrix. The particle beam behaved impossibly, following paths that should have been statistically improbable. The subject didn't change the particle's path through any physical means, Dr. Chen explained. They simply perceived a reality where that path was more probable. In quantum mechanics, that's enough. General Hayes stood, his expression grave. You're telling me that human consciousness, properly enhanced, could affect quantum systems just by observing them differently? More than that, Patel replied. We're talking about a revolution in how we interact with reality itself. The consciousness matrix doesn't give us control over quantum states, it gives us perspective on them. And in the quantum realm, perspective is everything. The footage continued, showing more tests, more impossible results. Quantum computers performing calculations that should have required thousands of qubits with just a handful. Particle interactions that defied standard models but made perfect sense when observed through quantum consciousness. This is why we called it Project Mirror, Dr. Chen said quietly. Because it reflects reality back at itself, showing us aspects we never knew existed. The universe isn't just stranger than we imagine, it's stranger than we can imagine. Until now. Colonel Rodriguez leaned back, her eyes narrow. And the risks? You're talking about fundamentally altering how human consciousness interacts with reality. The potential for disaster is precisely why we need this project, Patel interrupted. Humanity is advancing rapidly, but we're still thinking in linear terms. Somewhere out there, other civilizations are mastering quantum mechanics, bending space-time, harnessing energies we can barely detect. We need to be ready. Not by matching their technology, Dr. Chen added, but by understanding reality in ways they might never have considered. The greatest advances in human history haven't come from building bigger machines, but from changing how we think about problems. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, General Hayes spoke. How long until we have a working prototype? The basic consciousness matrix is already operational, Patel answered. But training people to use it effectively, to truly think in quantum terms, that will take time. We're not just developing technology, we're evolving human consciousness itself. 10 years, Dr. Chen estimated. 10 years to remake humanity's understanding of reality, to prepare ourselves not just for the challenges we know about, but for the ones we can't even imagine yet. The general nodded slowly. Do it. Whatever resources you need, you'll have them. But remember, this isn't just about military advantage. You're talking about changing what it means to be human. No, Patel corrected gently. We're talking about understanding what humanity has been all along. We've always affected reality through observation. We've always existed in quantum superposition. We just never realized it until now. As the meeting concluded and the officials filed out, Dr. Chen approached Patel. You didn't tell them everything, he said quietly, about what we saw in the deep consciousness tests. Patel watched the last officials leave before responding. They're not ready for that yet, James. The idea that consciousness might be the fundamental force of the universe, that reality itself might be an emergent property of quantum observation, one step at a time. And if we meet others out there, advanced civilizations, then we'll be ready, she replied. Not with superior firepower or advanced technology, but with a fundamentally different way of seeing reality. Sometimes the best defense isn't a stronger shield. It's understanding that the shield and the attack are both illusions of perspective. Outside the facility, snow fell on the Rocky Mountains, each flake following a quantum path that was both random and inevitable. Humanity was about to embark on its greatest journey, not out into space, but into the true nature of consciousness itself. Project Myror would change everything, not by giving humanity power over reality, but by showing them they had been part of its quantum dance all along. The Nexer Empire returned exactly 1 year after their first encounter with Earth. This time, they came not with a single fleet, but with an armada that darkened the space around Jupiter's orbit. Their ships moved with impossible precision, each one a masterpiece of quantum engineering. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the ESS Endeavour, watching the tactical display with Dr. Emily Patel at her side. The quantum consciousness matrix hummed beneath their feet, no longer an experimental device, but humanity's most sophisticated defense system. 3,000 ships, Lieutenant Rivera reported, his voice tight. Multiple classes. They've brought planet killers, Commander. Chen nodded, unsurprised. And our network. All 30 quantum consciousness nodes are online, Dr. Patel confirmed. Every major population center is connected to the matrix. We're as ready as we'll ever be. The main screen flickered to life, but instead of Supreme Commander Vexthor, a new face appeared. This Nexer's crystalline features were arranged in complex patterns that suggested extreme age and authority. I am High Archon Zixtel, the alien announced. Your species has intrigued us. Our preliminary assault failed in a way that should have been impossible. We have come to understand how. Chen straightened in her command chair. Welcome to Earth space, High Archon. I assume you've brought your armada to do more than talk. Indeed, the ancient alien's features shifted in what might have been amusement. You have discovered something remarkable. The quantum nature of consciousness itself. But you are children playing with forces beyond your comprehension. We have spent millennia mastering quantum mechanics. Your primitive understanding cannot hope to match our power. Dr. Patel stepped forward. With respect, Archon, you're making the same mistake as before. We're not trying to match your power. We're doing something entirely different. The tactical display suddenly blazed with warning lights as the Nexer fleet began to move. Their ships flowed into complex formations that seemed to bend space itself, each vessel's quantum drive creating ripples in reality. Observe, Zixtel commanded. True mastery of quantum mechanics. The first wave of Nexer ships fired, not with conventional weapons, but with beams that altered probability itself. Space twisted and warped around their targets, Earth's orbital defense platforms. One by one, the platforms found themselves existing in quantum states where their components had never been assembled, their very matter uncertain about its own configuration. But the platforms didn't dissolve. They didn't even flicker. Impossible. The High Archon's composure cracked slightly. Our quantum destabilizers should have reduced your defenses to their component probabilities. They did, Chen replied calmly. But you forgot something fundamental about quantum mechanics, Archon. The observer effect works both ways. Around Earth, the 30 quantum consciousness nodes activated in perfect synchronization. Unlike the Nexer's brute force approach to quantum manipulation, humanity's network operated on a subtler principle. Each node contained thousands of trained consciousness operators, their perceptions linked and enhanced by the matrix. They didn't try to change reality. They simply perceived it differently. The Nexer's quantum destabilizer beams continued to fire, but now they encountered something unprecedented. Coordinated quantum consciousness on a planetary scale. Every probability they tried to enforce was met with human observers, who could perceive alternate possibilities with equal certainty. Fascinating, Dr. Patel murmured, studying her readings. They're trying to collapse quantum states through forced observation, but they can't overcome our distributed consciousness network. It's like a quantum Mexican standoff. The High Archon's face showed the first signs of genuine concern. What have you done? This level of quantum coordination should be impossible for beings of your development. You see, that's the problem, Chen responded. You keep thinking in terms of development levels, of technological progression. But consciousness doesn't work that way. It's not about power or control. It's about understanding. The Nexer fleet's formation shifted again, this time moving into what appeared to be a hyperdimensional attack pattern. Understanding. Zixtel scoffed. We understand reality at its most fundamental level. Watch. The Armada's quantum drives synchronized, creating a cascading wave of probability manipulation that should have rewritten the very fabric of space-time around Earth. It was their ultimate weapon. The ability to change history itself through quantum manipulation. But as the wave reached Earth's orbit, something extraordinary happened. The human consciousness network didn't fight against the change. Instead, it embraced it, expanded it, perceived it in ways the Nexer had never imagined possible. You're right, Dr. Patel said to the increasingly agitated High Archon. You do understand reality at its fundamental level, but we've learned to understand consciousness at its fundamental level. And consciousness, as it turns out, is even more fundamental than reality itself. The quantum cascade wavered, caught between the Nexer's attempt to force a new reality and humanity's ability to perceive multiple realities simultaneously. In that moment of uncertainty, both civilizations glimpsed something profound: the true nature of existence itself. Stand down, Archon, Chen advised quietly. Your weapons can destroy planets, reshape space, and manipulate quantum states, but they can't overcome the power of consciousness itself. Because consciousness isn't just observing reality. It's participating in its very creation. The silence that followed seemed to stretch across multiple quantum states simultaneously. Finally, the High Archon spoke, his voice carrying a new tone, one of revelation. All this time, he said slowly, we thought mastery of quantum mechanics meant controlling reality. But you've shown us that true mastery means understanding our role as part of reality itself. The massive Nexer fleet began to power down its quantum drives. Their attempt at conquest transformed into something entirely different. A moment of shared enlightenment between two civilizations that had approached the same truth from opposite directions. Perhaps, Dr. Patel suggested, this is what first contact was always meant to be. Not a test of strength or technology, but a test of understanding. A chance for different perspectives to illuminate the true nature of existence itself. As the Nexer Armada withdrew, transformed not by defeat but by revelation, Commander Chen couldn't help but smile. Humanity had faced its greatest test, not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through a deeper understanding of the most fundamental force in the universe, consciousness itself. The stars twinkled in the viewport, each one a quantum possibility made real by the mere act of observation. And in that moment, both humanity and the Nexer Empire understood that they had only begun to grasp the true nature of reality, and their own role in shaping it. In the aftermath of the Nexer Armada's withdrawal, Earth's quantum consciousness network detected something unprecedented. Echoes of change rippling through the fabric of reality itself. Not from weapons or technology, but from the shifting perspectives of two civilizations whose understanding of existence had been fundamentally altered. Dr. Emily Patel stood in the heart of the Rocky Mountain facility, where Project Aurora had been born, now transformed into the Central Consciousness Coordination Hub. The quantum matrices that lined the walls pulsed with new patterns, reflecting the evolved state of human consciousness. They're still out there, Commander Sarah Chen said, joining her at the main observation window. Below them, hundreds of consciousness operators worked in synchronized meditation, their combined perception extending humanity's awareness far beyond Earth's borders. The Nexer fleet, they haven't left the solar system. They're learning, Paddle replied, studying the complex quantum readings, just as we are. Look at these patterns. They're attempting to harmonize their quantum technology with consciousness itself. The facility's main display activated, showing High Archon Zixtel's face. The ancient alien's crystalline features had somehow softened, transformed by new understanding. Dr. Patel, Commander Chen, we request permission to establish a permanent diplomatic presence in your system. There is much we need to discuss. Chen exchanged a look with Patel before responding. Permission granted, Archon. Though I admit, I'm curious about what changed. Your empire has stood for millennia on the principle of technological superiority. And that, Zixtel replied, was our greatest limitation. We mastered the manipulation of quantum states, but never considered that consciousness itself might be the key to understanding them. Your approach, it changes everything. Dr. James Chen entered the chamber, his face alight with excitement. The changes are more profound than we initially realized, he announced, bringing up new data streams. The Nexer's quantum technology, combined with our consciousness network, it's revealing aspects of reality we never imagined. The displays showed impossible readings, quantum states that existed in perfect superposition, consciousness patterns that extended beyond normal spacetime, possibilities that seemed to transcend the very concept of probability. We're seeing it too, Zixtel confirmed. Your consciousness network doesn't just observe quantum states, it participates in them in ways our technology never could. And when our quantum drives interact with your network, the Archon paused, searching for words. It's as if reality itself is waking up. Not waking up, Paddle corrected gently. We're waking up to it. Consciousness isn't just an observer of quantum mechanics, it's an integral part of how reality functions. Your technology showed us how to manipulate quantum states. Our approach showed us how to understand them. The facility's quantum matrices pulsed brighter as more consciousness operators joined the network. Each human mind added new perspectives, new ways of perceiving and interacting with the quantum fabric of existence. The paradigm shift isn't just in our understanding. Commander Chen noted, watching as Nexer ships began establishing orbital positions around Earth. Not as conquerors, but as students and teachers both. It's in how we approach advancement itself. Indeed, Zixtel agreed. For millennia, we believed advancement meant increasing control over reality. You've shown us that true advancement means understanding our place within it. Dr. James Chen brought up another display, this one showing the consciousness patterns of Nexer observers attempting to synchronize with the human network. Look at this. They're not trying to force their way in. They're learning to perceive things as we do, while we learn to understand their technological mastery. It's a true synthesis. The question is, Patil mused, where does this lead? If consciousness and quantum mechanics are this fundamentally intertwined, what other aspects of reality have we been missing? As if in answer, the quantum matrices suddenly flared with new energy. The combined consciousness of humans and Nexer, enhanced by technology but guided by understanding, began to perceive something vast. Patterns in reality that had always been present but never before observed. Are you seeing this? Commander Chen asked, her voice hushed. The displays showed quantum structures that seemed to exist independent of normal spacetime, consciousness patterns that suggested reality itself might be more aware than anyone had imagined. We see it, Zixtel confirmed, his own voice filled with wonder. These patterns, they're not just quantum mechanics. They're not just consciousness. They're like the thoughts of existence itself. Dr. James Chen studied the readings intently. Perhaps that's what consciousness has always been, not just a byproduct of complex brains, but a fundamental force of reality, as essential as gravity or electromagnetism. We didn't evolve consciousness. Consciousness evolved us to help it understand itself. The implications were staggering. Two civilizations that had approached the universe from opposite directions, one through technological mastery, the other through conscious understanding, had inadvertently discovered something far more profound than either had imagined. This is why the paradigm shift matters, Paddle said quietly. Not because it proves one approach right and another wrong, but because it shows us that true advancement comes from synthesis, from combining different ways of understanding into something greater than either could achieve alone. Outside the facility, Earth's sky had taken on a new quality, not just blue, but somehow more vibrant, as if reality itself was becoming more real under the combined observation of two civilizations, learning to see with new eyes. We're not just changing how we think about the universe, Commander Chen realized. We're changing how the universe thinks about itself, through us. The quantum matrices pulsed one final time, settling into a new pattern that reflected this profound truth. Humanity and the Nexar had not just avoided war. They had stumbled upon the next great leap in cosmic evolution, one that promised to transform not just their civilizations, but their understanding of existence itself. 5 years after the historic convergence of human consciousness and Nexar quantum technology, the solar system had become unrecognizable. Around each planet orbited massive consciousness amplification arrays, their quantum matrices pulsing in harmony with both human and Nexar observers. Earth itself glowed with a subtle luminescence visible from space, the physical manifestation of billions of minds learning to perceive reality in fundamentally new ways. Commander Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen, stood aboard the new joint species vessel, Quantum Observer. The ship represented everything that had changed. Its hull was composed of Nexar quantum crystalline materials, but its core housed a human consciousness matrix. It didn't just travel through space, it perceived new paths through reality itself. The delegation from the Galactic Council will be arriving within the hour, Dr. Emily Patil announced, her voice carrying the weight of anticipation. The Quantum Consciousness Network had detected the approaching ships long before conventional sensors could. Massive vessels representing over 300 spacefaring civilizations. Are they ready for what we're about to show them? Chen asked, watching as the combined human Nexar defense fleet took up its ceremonial positions. Each ship now carried both species, their different approaches to understanding reality, creating something greater than either could achieve alone. They'll have to be, High Archon Zixtel replied, his crystalline form now incorporating organic elements, a physical representation of how much the Nexar had changed. What we've discovered, it changes everything we thought we knew about consciousness, reality, and existence itself. The Council ships moved into their designated positions, their crews experiencing for the first time the expanded awareness that had become normal for humans and Nexar alike. Through the consciousness network, Chen could sense their reactions: shock, wonder, and the beginning of understanding. This is why we requested this gathering. Dr. James Chen explained to the assembled council representatives, his words carried both by conventional communications and consciousness resonance. What humanity and the Nexar have discovered together isn't just a new technology or a new perspective. It's a new chapter in the evolution of consciousness itself. The quantum displays showed the spread of the discovery. Consciousness networks expanding across the galaxy, different species learning to perceive and interact with reality in new ways. What had started as a defensive project on Earth had become something far more profound. A fundamental shift in how sentient beings understood their place in the universe. The legacy isn't in the technology. Patel addressed the council, her consciousness patterns emphasizing her words. It's not in the quantum matrices or the consciousness networks. It's in the understanding that reality isn't something that happens to us. It's something we participate in, something we help create through our very awareness of it. Around them, the combined consciousness of thousands of observers created patterns visible to their enhanced perception, quantum states moving in harmony with thought, possibility and actuality dancing together in ways that defied conventional physics but made perfect sense to their evolved understanding. This is what First Contact was meant to be, High Archon Zixtel declared. Not a competition between technologies or ideologies, but a convergence of perspectives that reveals new truths about existence itself. Admiral Chen watched as more council delegates joined the consciousness network, their own unique perspectives adding new dimensions to the collective understanding. Each species brought its own way of seeing, its own approach to comprehending reality. And in that diversity of perception, the network grew stronger, deeper, more profound. The stars look different now, she observed, gazing out at space that was no longer just vacuum and light, but a living tapestry of consciousness and quantum potential. Not because they've changed, but because we've learned to see them as they truly are. And this is just the beginning, Patel added softly. Every new consciousness that joins the network brings new insights, new ways of seeing. We're not just exploring space anymore. We're exploring the very nature of existence itself. The quantum observer pulsed with the combined awareness of its crew, its consciousness core, harmonizing the perspectives of humanity, the Nexer, and now the Council species. Together, they perceived patterns in reality that suggested possibilities beyond anything their individual civilizations had imagined. Perhaps this was inevitable, Dr. James Chen suggested. Perhaps consciousness had to evolve to this point, had to learn to see itself in the quantum mirror of reality. Perhaps this is what the universe has been working toward all along, the moment when its own awareness, through us, becomes conscious of itself. As the Council delegates began to grasp the implications of what humanity and the Nexer had discovered, a new era in galactic history began. Not one of technological advancement or territorial expansion, but of growing awareness, of consciousness itself evolving to new levels of understanding and participation in the cosmic dance of existence. The legacy of stars, it turned out, wasn't in their light or their energy, but in their role as waypoints in consciousness's journey to understand itself. And humanity, through its unique approach to that understanding, had helped illuminate the path forward for all sentient beings.